Hello, ladies.
Morning.
Morning. Good afternoon, whichever one you are. Maybe
Definitely morning.
maybe it's evening for some. So, Liz, you've been going back to school.
I have. Are we going to talk about school today?
We can talk about school. I do want to make a special announcement that it is Suicide Prevention Month.
Mm.
So, want to make sure we at least have links to whatever resources that we can offer. Pay special attention to people, what they're saying, what they're not saying, what they're doing. The number one way to help people is to listen and express care and concern. And then we can add some links to some resources to the post. But mental health is a significant issue for everyone. And this little group has some experience with suicides in families. And so I just wanted to make that shout out today.
If you remember Julianne Whitelaw, who came in and talked about her nonprofit that helps dogs that are have serious medical issues, she volunteers with the crisis text line, and I'm in the process of going through that training. And so in order to do that, you would text home to 741-741. You can also WhatsApp WhatsApp them as well. But their URL is it's crisistextline.org. So I know that one is quite good. And one that I'm committed to supporting. So just in case anybody needs it.
Great. And I just looked up some national information. You can also call or text 988. And there are other phone lines that will attach, but at least it is easier.
Mm-hmm.
The more and more automated and resourced we can be virtually to reach out for help. And really that's the big message. 46% of individuals who do ultimately die by suicide have known mental health struggles. So it is generally known. Men are 4 times as likely to be successful in dying by suicide than women. And then there's just a lot of substance use, erratic behavior, withdrawal to be aware of. So just ask, offer a listening ear, offer your care and compassion, and just be sure everyone understands the help that is needed is truly very simple.
One of the hardest things that I have ever had to do is ask one of my kids, are you thinking about harming yourself? And I was surprised at how difficult it was to ask that. Does that make sense? Like, I have experience with suicide, and it was still really hard to ask a person really close to me, are you having thoughts of harming yourself?
Yeah. It goes way deep, way personal, really quickly. And I think the hesitancy sometimes is we're not quite sure what we're going to do if the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and finding a therapist these days is really hard.
Yeah.
Especially if you want that traditional in-person experience. It's really, really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
assuaging the immediacy and then getting help is the key.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really hard for all of us who've been through it in some way too, because you want to go, no, 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 you can't be thinking that. We can't be thinking about going through something like that again. And so we need to realize this isn't about us and the struggle of being an ally to someone suffering. This is how to get someone the help they need as quickly as possible.
Right. And to not shame people, right? Because
Right.
for me, right, the hurt that happened that was ongoing still sticks with me. And so I've got a lot of opinions. But to not let that color the interaction with a loved one as you're engaging, because engaging is super important.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. All very good points. And I think what you're touching on too is the PTSD that we have from having gone through losing somebody that way. And then the fact that there are certainly signifiers, there are trends, right, that we can use as a society to help us know when somebody's at risk. And yet, to your point, Kate, we're all on our own. Every human is on their own journey of, joy and suffering and capacity to tolerate pain and suffering. And we can think we know what's going on for someone else, and we just can't.
We just can't.
Yeah. And with my father, there was threats over the years, to the degree that people stopped listening. But it's not always overt, because someone doesn't want attention as they're going through a struggle. You cannot know anything is going on with them.
Yeah. So with that promo, I would love to turn to what's it like to be going through school again, Liz?
It's really weird, honestly, especially because I'm taking these science classes. I'm just finishing anatomy 1 and anatomy 2, and I'm about to start chemistry and microbiology, and my teenagers are taking the same classes.
Oh, good. You can be a tutor to help you all.
I've asked them and they both said no, thank you. I've also offered them my notes. They also said no, thank you.
So why don't you recap a little bit? What are you going back to school for and why? I'm not sure everyone would have that background.
Sure. And I think that what might be significant for people listening is really that I'm experimenting. And that's a really it's I think it should be more what people are, tolerated to do when they're in their 50s, which I am. But it's just it's unusual. But what I'm doing is exploring going to nursing school to be a palliative care nurse, and it would be in combination with some of the skill sets that I've already developed, like being a death doula. But I would like to be a palliative care nurse, and I'm seeing that as sort of my career that would take greater shape as I get older, because we're all going to exit this planet in one way or another, and hopefully it'll be old age, and there's a need for people who can care for the dying. So right now it's truly just exploring.
Okay.
And because in my undergraduate degree, I didn't take any science classes.
Okay.
So I'm taking the prerequisites that I would need in order to go to nursing school. And it's really causing me to have to use all of the thought processes and mindsets that I coach my clients to have, right? So like challenging the narrative, my narrative being, I'm terrible at math and science. I always have been, I always will be. That's just not something that is a pursuit that's available for me.
There's quite a bit of math and science in nursing, though.
There is. There is.
I'm gonna get good at it.
And knock on wood, I'm in my final week. So unless I tank, I have 2 A's
Ah!
And that's probably the big, whatever happens, right? Again, I don't know if I'm going to go to nursing school, but I know that I can do science now.
Yeah.
That's the difference. That's the difference between me 6 weeks ago and me today.
Wow.
I don't know if you guys know this, but during the pandemic, I think it was like right during the pandemic, I took a abnormal psychology class. Positive psychology was all pulled up, but abnormal was open through the San Mateo Community College. Go figure. And it is interesting being an adult, flexing those muscles that, like, when you're a young person going through school, it's very much like I have to do these things in order to do this thing. So I need to get through it. At least that was my take on it, right? Get through it as fast as possible. I would drive myself to study. French was my arch nemesis. I would, like, there was a target trip at the end of an A in that class. And as an adult, and I don't know if you're finding this, Liz, but there's a lot more joy and curiosity in the process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have that.
No one's like forcing you to do it.
That's absolutely the thing. No one is forcing me, and I have said that to myself multiple times. When I get to points where I feel really out of my depth, which is typically when it starts to get into things on the cellular level and needing to comprehend chemistry concepts. And I've routinely found myself completely lost. And I just have to say, no one's forcing me to do this. And it's okay to not know. It's okay to not know. Just read it again and try not to listen to that voice that comes in that says, you're stupid. You won't get it. Just stop.
Yeah. Because no one that starts it knows the information. No one.
Well,
So
and
really, it's all about mindset. It's all about your story. It's all about, do you walk in or start believing this is important, that you are curious, that you can do this and get through to the other side, or not. Yeah.
well, and one thing that's truly different about going to school now versus going to school before is we know so much more about adult education. We know that there is more than one way to teach a concept. And we have this World Wide Web here that is so extensive. Like when I was, I can't remember where Wikipedia came in, but it was like, well, that's not something that you go to for reference. And now Wikipedia is that's a resource, right? Like my kids would cite Wikipedia in their college papers. And I was like, you're not supposed to do that, but you can. So there's, one way is not getting it. You can read it again. You can sneak up on it. You can have a conversation. You can find something else. You can read a different book. You can find a YouTube video on it. I mean,
that's what I was going to say. Experiential learning is so much more successful with adults. I think even kids, get out of the didactic and get into the teams and the experiences and the labs, and go volunteer and shadow and intern, and so Liz, are you able to learn the biology and the chemistry through those experiences, or is it all tough?
It is much easier when there's a video that helps me visualize. You're absolutely right. And Google is my best friend. I didn't even know that there's a thing called Google Scholar.
Oh, yeah.
So that I use that all the time. A lot of it still is really, above my head, but I just keep reminding myself that I'm not trying to be the smartest nurse.
Mm.
I'm not trying to be, and that goes back to, I think, what you were saying earlier, is you do a thing because you're trying to get to another thing, to another thing, to another thing, right? I don't need to have A's. I don't need to be at the top of the class. I just need to, my counselor says, figure out what you're trying to get out of that situation and go get it.
Mhm.
And so I'm trying to have that mindset. But I think the other thing that is I'm finding that's still true, doesn't matter how old I get, I still fall prey to imposter syndrome. I look at everyone else's discussions. It's a big part of class, and interacting is engaging in discussions, written discussions, where you have to cite your opinions and your references and all of that, right? And you have to move the conversation forward. I read other people's and I immediately think, oh, they're so much smarter than me. It's the
Oh,
same
no,
narrative.
they just have more time, or they're more detailed, or they're more chatty, or they
Right.
need more attention. It has nothing to do with the ultimate nurse.
Or
Well,
they are smarter, and who cares? It doesn't matter.
it's not a
But
competition.
it's the work. This is the work that I will do, as many of my clients do. This is the work that I will do until I excuse myself from the planet. There will always be those voices, and I have to say, okay, we're going to put you over in the sidecar right now.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about imposter syndrome a minute. It is just a matter of our big human brain trying to protect ourselves from looking stupid, being unsafe. That's its job. It's not a syndrome, it's not a mental health issue. It's just a natural element of our human nature.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to tell it, oh, it's okay. I really will be okay. I will survive this. I really will.
Yeah, I started a nonviolent communication class yesterday, because it's a day, so I'm starting a new class.
I thought there was a
You are.
promise somewhere.
I ended my compassionate class
Hmm.
yesterday morning.
Okay.
Congratulations.
That's a 9 month course, 9-month course. And then I started in the afternoon. There was a 4-hour block where I didn't have class, and then I started communication. No, but the thing that struck me about that class is and for me it is sitting in a class. Like, I have to sit in a class in order to really grok it. I've read a bunch of books. I've read 2 books on nonviolent communication, but I'm still not quite wrapping my head around it. And that little voice, it needs something. It has a need. It needs to feel secure. It needs to feel loved. It needs to feel right. It feels a risk. Feels. And so what does it need? What does it need to feel better about what we're doing? Hey, I hear you. You're scared. We can talk to that part of ourselves. You're scared. And I get it. You are smart enough. And it's not a competition with this other person. Let's go learn from them. Let's get curious and get excited.
Yeah, that's the point you're both making that I think is so hard about navigating imposter syndrome, is that instead of trying to just shut that voice off, you're both advising to befriend it.
It's not going anywhere.
Just as you would if you were taking one of your kids to kindergarten for the first time.
Scary.
Yeah.
Compassion with that little voice who's scared, who doesn't know, doesn't like to be compared, who has avoided being in a situation where it could get examined. What if it finds out it is stupid? Oh, geez. Scary.
It is. You're right. You're right. Anyway, so onward with my experiment. and I have to be just in a place of not knowing what this is going to turn into, other than I can do the science.
You can do the science. That's huge.
There's a book about I think it's called Beginners or Beginnings or something like that. Gwen, I'll get you the link so we can post it. My husband read it. And so by proxy, I have. And it is all about, like, in your retirement, how you go about continuously learning. You're not going to be good at, like, Tom wants to surf. He's 57 years old. He's not going to be on the world tour the year that he goes to learn to surf.
Right.
And that's okay.
Mhm.
It's continuing to do things that we're not good at and to enjoy the process versus the I'm doing this for an end. That's not what it becomes anymore.
Mhm. And yet
That's-
it's so hard when we are adults and we have found a few things in life at least we are good at and that we excel at, to put a pause on that stuff and go back to that beginner stage of something. Gosh, that's awkward.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. It's so cringy.
Cringy.
Cringy. I feel like that's a teenage word, um, but we have one life, right? And so I feel like I'm just getting started in this next chapter, and I'm I'm certainly daunted at times, but I'm going to keep moving forward. And I'm going to remember that all those other things in my past that I have figured out and learned to be somewhat, successful enough at, that propels me forward. Um, I have two built-in voices that help with my imposter syndrome that perpetuate it. And the second one is my middle kid, who, when she found out I was going to potentially go to nursing school, she's like, you, you? Like, you would be in charge of people's lives?
Oh,
She goes, Mom, you can't even add.
That's what your phone is for.
I know. That's what I said. I said that. And she said, okay, that I'm going to start asking people where they went to school if I'm in the emergency room. And I said, honey, here's the thing. The population that I would work with, they're already dying. So I don't think you have to worry about me, being in the emergency room with someone your age. But
that's so funny.
She would be very scared to know how many brand new nurses and doctors are in the emergency room with her.
Yeah.
Brand new baby doctors,
Mhm.
brand new baby nurses, because there's a nursing crisis and they are opting out. So a whole new crop coming.
And
absolutely.
that second year medical school students start to see patients. I
Mhm.
mean, come on. So,
Absolutely. Anyway,
You then who?
so the voices that you're hearing, including your middle, are just not informed about how life really works.
mhm.
And your role as a palliative care nurse would be to help people live a thriving life for as long as they possibly can.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And you
Well,
got that. You got that in spades.
it's so much more than needing to add. It's so much more than that as the experience.
Mhm.
If we had physicians who listened, our care would be so much better.
Amen. And I don't have to be a nurse to help dying people, but I'm exploring whether that might be the right niche. But regardless, I know that I will help people who are in the last stage of their life.
And yay, you. You are being so brave. So brave. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. I don't think I would have had the courage without the influence of the two of you to start this experiment. So thank you both.
Very welcome. Anything else for today? That was big.
Beginner's mind. Let's approach it with it.
All right.
Beginner's mind.
You go rock those classes, Liz.
I think I'm dissecting an axolotl again today, so
Nice.
Hmm.
Sounds scary, but you got it, right?
I got
All right. See you.
Bye.
Bye.